Hey guys, it's Lord of the Pogs. If you're here, it's because you remember the Real Ghostbusters, and if you grew up on that, you'll enjoy one of my older videos, 15 Things That Defined Your Generation If You Grew Up in the 90s. Link in description. I remember watching the Real Ghostbusters on Saturday mornings growing up. I never had any of the toys, but 30 years later, I'm the proud owner of a box set that looks like the Firehouse. It has 5 discs, and what's really cool about this is it includes the commercial breaks.
We now return to the Real Ghostbusters.
Some episodes even have options to watch with commentary overdubs. Okay, let's dive in. These, the Real Ghostbusters episodes, were nightmare fuel when we were kids. Number 7, Season 2, Episode 30, The Ghostbusters in Paris. In this episode, thousands of ghosts are released when workmen on the Eiffel Tower accidentally damage a device in Gustave Eiffel's lab, and the Ghostbusters discover that the Eiffel Tower was designed as a containment unit. This episode featured a rather gruesome animated scene for a kids' show. This episode reminds me of the scene in Ghostbusters when Walter Peck orders the city workers to turn off the containment unit, and the cab driver turns into a zombie. And the scene in Ghostbusters 2 when the slime from the sewers causes supernatural chaos. Number 6, Season 1, Episode 3, Mrs. Rogers' Neighborhood. In this episode, a demon named Watt disguises itself as an elderly woman named Mrs. Rogers and portrays Peter as the victim of a demonic possession, probably very similar to Zool's possession of Dana Barrett in the movie. It wants to open the containment unit and created Mrs. Rogers' house to be a trap for the Ghostbusters to get them out of the firehouse. The entire house is made of ghosts. The doorknob swallows the key so they can't get out. Hundreds of hands come out of the walls. The furnace tries to burn them to death, and every piece of furniture attacks them. Number 5, Season 2, Episode 38, The Thing in Mrs. Faversham's Attic. You remember this episode if you were ever afraid of the basement, the bedroom closet, or a crawl space. As a kid, I had a monster in my closet that I called the Black Cow, but it was really more like a gorilla. To this day, I can't sleep with the bedroom door open. In the episode, a little old lady has a monster living in her attic that she put up with for 70 years, apparently since her father last opened it before he died. The Ghostbusters learn that Charles Faversham summoned a demonic entity called Belaranthon to give his family a good life, but when he couldn't get rid of it, he sealed it in the attic and made Agatha promise never to open it. Number 4, Season 3, Episode 10, The Grundle. This episode features a malicious ghost called a Grundle. A Grundle is described as a supernatural creature, a parasite, that appears to young kids and tries to manipulate them into doing bad things. For the Grundle's power to work, the child has to invite it into their home. Eventually, the child turns into a Grundle themselves, and it moves on to its next victim. Watching this episode again as an adult, it reminds me of the NBC series Grimm, with Egon researching mythological creatures similar to Nick Burkhardt. One thing I've wondered about is if the child turns into a Grundle, that probably means that the Grundle in the episode was once a child itself. Unlike many Ghostbusters adversaries, the Grundle doesn't have a direct mythological counterpart. Its voice, behavior, and mannerisms are highly suggestive of a child molester. It's often been very controversial due to its extremely dark nature and remains one of the most iconic Ghostbusters characters. Number 3, Season 2, Episode 40, Knock Knock. In this episode, subway workmen open a door that unleashes evil from hell. It's a Sumerian gateway which ties in with Gozer the Gozerian, a Sumerian god from the original film. I've always imagined that the subway tunnel in the episode is the same one from Ghostbusters 2. The scene with the slave ship full of damned souls reminds me of the nightmare scene from All Dogs Go to Heaven, and the hell scene from What Dreams May Come. Number 2, Season 6, Episode 4, The Haunting of Heck House. Some Ghostbusters fans might disagree with this episode placing on my list, but it's always been my personal favorite. Peter recounts their most dangerous case where they spent the entire night at Heck House, the most haunted house in the world, without their proton packs. The Ghostbusters learned that the original architect of the house, Jonah or Joshua Heck, wanted to build the most haunted house in the world, so he filled the library with 2,436 books by authors including Edgar Allan Poe, Shirley Jackson, Richard Matheson, Robert Howard, Arthur Machen, H.P. Lovecraft, and Robert Bloch, and cast a spell to bring all the stories to life. To escape, Egon suggests they use the house's wiring to turn the house into a ghost trap. Number 1. Season 1, Episode 6, The Boogeyman Cometh, and its sequel, Season 3, Episode 4, The Boogeyman is Back. The Boogeyman is arguably the most recognizable mythological creature by name that appears in the Real Ghostbusters. If you watched this episode as a kid, it terrified you. Everybody's heard stories about the Boogeyman under their bed or in their closet, and this episode put a face to it. In The Boogeyman Cometh, 2 frightened children turn up at the firehouse claiming that the Boogeyman lives in their closet. The Ghostbusters learn that the Boogeyman lives in an Alice in Wonderland-esque dimension lined with doors that gives him access to all the closets in the world. The Ghostbusters defeat him by trapping him in his dimension. In The Boogeyman is Back, Egon has a near-death experience that frightens him so much his fear releases the Boogeyman through the closet door in the sleeping quarters in the firehouse. Egon modifies a particle thrower into an atomic destabilizer to transform the Boogeyman into a ghost version of himself long enough to capture him in a ghost trap and put him in the containment unit. Do you agree with my list? What do you remember about the Real Ghostbusters? Please let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos like this one.